When you're ready to ride Metro, we want you to know we're ready for you. Here are just a few of the people at Metro to tell you how we're doing our part to keep riders safe.
We're cleaning like never before with hospital-grade cleaning.
You'll find hand sanitizer stations all over the Metro.
No mask, no Metro. Need one? We have a few extras.
At Metro, we're doing our part to keep the D.C. area moving. Find out more at WMATA.com/doingourpart.
Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and you are listening to No BS Job Search Advice Radio, episode 1911 of the #1 show in Apple Podcast for job search. No show is even close to this one. So many more episodes than all the others. We do this show 7 days a week in order to help you find work. And today's show is an interview with Ann Corley Bum, spelled B-A-U-M, the author of a soon-to-be-released book called, Small Mistakes, Big Consequences for Interviews. Sorry, I had a brain cramp on the title of the book. Lovely little book, and she's a very nice guest. So, again, a longer interview today, and I do hope you find it helpful. If you like the interview, order the book from her. It's available on Amazon, where I have a link in the show notes, bn.com, walmart.com, a whole host of different places. And with that, let's just get going, okay? So my guest today is Ann Corley Bum, spelled B-A-U-M, who's the author. The original book is called Small Mistakes, Big Consequences. New book coming out September 1, 2020. Small Mistakes, Big Consequences for Interviews, which is why she's on this show. And I'm just going to simply say, Lehigh Valley Executive and Vice President Distribution Channels and Labor Relations for Capital Blue Cross. Not exactly a small firm. An award winner. She's coached high performance or high potential performers on their way up the ladder to the C-suite. And thanks for making time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. What prompted you to write the new book?
Well, through my career, I learned a lot of things about what works and what doesn't work in business. And I felt compelled to share what I've learned along my career journey with others so that they can avoid making some of those small mistakes that can not only lead to big consequences, but in some cases can end a particular component of their career. So putting the book together as a piece of advice that anybody could use at any stage in their career to really learn how their personal behavior is perceived by others and to raise that awareness so that they can be their best self whenever they're out in business or in life in general.
In other words, you're coaching them. I'm just starting to get jealous here.
I should borrow your coach hat.
Well, it's what you do, obviously. Part of the work that a leader does is they coach their staff. And it's natural that you would do a book like this. How did you develop the characters in the book?
Well, what I did was put together a list of really annoying behaviors. And frankly, there are things that I have done that I know backfired or characters that I would run into. And I put together the list of the mistakes, and then I put humorous and memorable names on them so that people could, when looking at their own behavior or that of their team members, could easily identify somebody in a humorous way that could then lead to positive discussion on how to improve a particular behavior.
I'm going to ask a quirky question here because I read the PDF of the book a few weeks ago, so I've forgotten some of it. Do you have a Karen in there by any chance? Because obviously the name Karen has become a much more famous name for bad behavior of a particular sort. So I was just curious if there was a Karen in there.
There is currently not a Karen in the book.
That's good. Karens have gotten beaten up sufficiently and with good reason. So perception's reality. What people believe is true becomes the truth to them. So how can someone who's interviewing, how can a candidate do things to change perception or deal with the incongruence between what they believe the reality is and what an interviewer believes reality is?
Mhm. Well, I think one of the most important things you can do for an interview is remove any distractions that can leave that negative impression with the interviewer. Being well prepared for the interview, arriving on time, and preferably early, not eating or drinking as part of that interview, being well prepared with your answers so that you're not using filler words like or awkward words that get in the way of the message that you're communicating, and really focusing on delivering the best version of yourself. And that is everything from how you dress, making sure not only that you look like good, but also that you're comfortable in what you're wearing, that you feel that power and confidence in preparing for the interview, and really do your homework on the company. So you're not stuttering and stammering and asking silly questions that immediately eliminate you from the interview process.
When I started in search back in the Stone Ages, and we were scheduling people for interviews, it was a lot harder to find out about what a firm did if they were not a well-known organization. These days, there's no excuse for someone to say, "So what does your firm do?"
Exactly. And not only is it easy to find out about the company, but it's also easy to find out about the people with whom you are interviewing. Take a look at their LinkedIn, look on Instagram, look on Facebook, get a sense of the person. And I wouldn't necessarily reveal that you are stalking them or spying on them, but get a sense of what's important to them, what their background is, what their history is, and that will better prepare you for interacting with that individual.
And on LinkedIn, folks, one thing that you can do is in the privacy settings, turn off the way that people will see you online temporarily. So that way you can go look at their profile, don't look as though you've been examining them. And all that will appear to them is someone from Capital Blue Cross has looked at your profile. And that's as much as they'll discover about you. It could be anyone in the organization. And then once you're done, turn it back on, reverse the setting. But that allows you to maintain anonymity when doing it.
Right. And I agree with that anonymity, but also I will tell you, if somebody's preparing for a meeting with me and I see that they have checked my LinkedIn, I have a great deal of respect for that because they're taking the time to look and do their research prior to that meeting. And I find a great deal of innovation and sense in doing that. So I am not offended when I see that somebody has taken a look at my LinkedIn profile.
Other than looking at a LinkedIn profile, what other forms of preparation should someone do in researching the organization or preparing for the interview?
Well, preparing for the interview means first understanding what the job description is for the role for which you are interviewing. Look at the skill sets that they are requesting. What are the duties and challenges associated with that role? So first understand the role. Then take a look on the web, understand the company. If you know people that work at the company, ask them about the company or the individuals with whom you're interviewing. And then think about what the typical questions would be for that interview and prepare what would be your best answer to those questions, and also prepare your questions for the interview. You're interviewing for them to choose you, but you are also choosing this role. And even though they may want you for the role, if it's not a good fit for your skill set or what you're trying to do with your career development, it won't work out in the long run. So think through what your most important questions are for that interview as well.
And thus, if someone is preparing to find out, I think by the time a person is asked about, so do you have any questions for us? The time is starting to run out. And there isn't a lot of time to ask questions. Do you have recommendations for questions that someone should ask to elicit a response so that they can learn about the role?
My absolute favorite question to ask at the end of an interview is, what does success look like in this role? Or what are the results you're trying to achieve with this person in this role? Because it causes the interviewer to share what they're looking for, and it helps you determine whether or not what they're trying to accomplish is something that you are able to achieve. I find whenever I ask a question like that, it causes the interviewer or the interviewing panel to pause and really think about it. I think it shows that you're focused on success and results, and it really gives you great insight into where the company is going with the role that they're trying to fill.
I language that question a little bit differently. And the way I set it up, my belief is I want to take people off their scripted answers. And that's true when I coach employers about interviewing and conversely job hunters about interviewing. So the first question I have them ask is, let's say you hire me and I come on board. What would your expectations of me be for the first 30, 60, 90 days? Which most hiring managers can answer because they know what the immediate need is. But rather than asking what success is going to look like, I set it up a little bit differently, but I get to the same place. So let's say it's a year from now, and it's time to give me my first review, and you are thrilled with the decision you made to hire me. What will I have accomplished during that year that will make you think that way? Same outcome, but language differently. And it's interesting how people get different answers to that question when it's framed this way versus that way. And they both work. They both work.
That's a great way to ask it. I really like that.
Thank you. I'm curious about something because I'll explain the reason for my curiosity in a moment. I find job descriptions are about 80% accurate. And
If that.
Right. Thank you for confirming an opinion. And the reason I say that is most job descriptions are pulled out of a database at a time someone gives notice, and they're never updated. So here's another one of my beliefs. I believe job hunters start the interview. Instead of waiting for the other person to ask me, walk me through your background or tell me about yourself, I have them ask, so, thanks for making time to meet with me today. I recall the position description, or, I spoke with Ann about the role, but I want to get your take on it. Could you tell me about the role as you see it and what I can do to help? So this way they can hear the current thinking about the position at the beginning of the interview and talk about what they've done that matters instead of, in theory, being way off base because they interpret the job as one thing and the manager now needs something very different. What do you think?
Right. Oh, I think that's a great idea. And it reminds me to remind people to listen during that interview. So as you're teeing up that question, to hear what it is they're expecting for the role, make sure that you're actually listening to what they are saying so you can formulate the appropriate answer as to how your skill set matches up with what they are seeking. So often we are not really listening. We're just waiting to get to our next answer, and really taking the time to focus and listen to what they're saying will help you give the best answer once they give you a great answer to the question you posed to them.
Thank you. This is so good for me and my coaching. I love this, Ann, because you're affirming something that, I worked in search for more than 40 years, and you learn after a while, after it happens to you way too often, how to cope with these situations that keep repeating themselves. Thus, the next thing I do is I coach people to answer, tell me about yourself, starting off with a brief summary of experience, and then segueing into connecting the dots for the interviewer for how their background matches the need that they were just told about. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's great. And if you're doing it well, the interviewer doesn't even realize that you're matching your skill set to what they need. You just leave that room and they think, this is the perfect person, because you have very subtly connected your talents, your expertise, and your experience with exactly what they are looking for. And the more you can hear from them exactly what they're looking for and then match those needs with your skills, the better chance you have of getting the job and succeeding in it.
And the more folks that you have, that you make the interviewer work to get that information out, the less they believe it's the core part of your background. So by offering it up and telling them what you've done that relates to what they're looking for, it just makes it so much easier for them. And like Ann says, they believe you can do this job. So I'm sorry, please.
Well, I was just going to say, what you said reminded me, don't leave important characteristics or skill sets that you have to assumption. If there's something that you have that happens to be in your resume and is a perfect match for the role, make sure you get it out there on the table. Often someone has seen so many resumes, read so many different descriptions of individuals, reminding them the key competencies that you possess, the special talents that you offer. Even though they might be on the resume, make sure you're bringing them to light in that interview, especially when they match up perfectly with the role.
And when I think of that, I think in terms of applying for a job and going through a system to apply that's often looking for keywords higher up in the document and repeated so that it's within the system's dictionary of terms. So the system goes, high potential match. So page 1, first half is ideal. Page 3, bottom of the page, not so good. So we're in a time of where we're all doing interviews by video. And this is going to go on much more normally in the future, of course. And folks are first getting used to the medium. What advice do you have for people who are being interviewed over video?
The first piece of advice that I have is take it seriously and prepare for it just as you would preparing to walk into an office. Practice with your camera on. Make sure you have a great angle to your camera. Make sure you have excellent lighting. Make sure that the sound is working well. Oftentimes it's better to use a microphone and headphones as opposed to the speaker on your computer. And think about what you're wearing. Make sure that what you have on the camera matches up with the role that you are interviewing for. So you still need to look the part, even though it's via video. And practice with friends. You can easily get a Zoom account and turn on the camera and record yourself, hear how you sound, see yourself, and get used to it so that by the time you're ready for that interview, you're not worrying about your camera presence. You're worrying about listening to the questions. You're focused on who you are and why you're the right person for the role. And the camera just becomes something that's going on in the background.
Agreed. And it's funny, we're both people who wear glasses. And as such, one of the small things, and I'm aware that my glasses are doing this, is glare on the glasses. And just being aware that in certain positions, you don't create as much glare. So if your head is tilted forward ever so slightly, often it takes the glare off. So for those of us who wear them, it's a small tip, but everyone wants to see your eyes.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree. And there's so many little things that you can think through. Even what's behind you. Is there a big pile of garbage? Is there an empty plate with your lunch on it? Think about the things that are surrounding you in the background and just have it look the best that it and most professional that it possibly can look.
So, thank you. And excuse my laughter, but I talk to people all day over Zoom, and it's amazing to see what's behind people sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes it's the person walking by, and we've all seen these videos from TV, the person walking by in various forms of undress that are absolutely bizarre. Close the door if you're in a house with other people. Minimize the distracting noises and lights in order to ensure things look well. Be aware of your backdrop and how that presents as well. Lots of little things that if you record yourself on camera, you'll see and notice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we've got so many different places that we can go to with this conversation. So I know part of what people in your profession do, part of what recruiters will do, is kind of like doctors. They spend time ruling people out before they start ruling people in. What are the easy ways that recruiters find to disqualify people from further consideration, even though they might actually be qualified for the role?
One of the things that almost always catches my eye is somebody who has short stints and seems to be regularly moving from place to place. Now, if they're moving for increasingly advanced roles so that it's clearly a move to grow in their career, I am less critical of that than I am if it's similar roles where they're only there for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. Now, during this current time, I think you'll see people transitioning a little more readily simply because their positions are being eliminated or they're being furloughed. So I encourage interviewers to take that into consideration during this time. And I just saw a resume the other day where somebody actually wrote furloughed on right next to their term date. And I thought that was very helpful because to me that says that person didn't quit, they weren't fired, their role was just put on furlough. So I think that's a helpful piece of information right now. But that is something that regularly jumps out at me when somebody only has short stints and they're either getting fired or they're not a reliable employee that a company could count on.
Yeah. And again, as a former recruiter, I was trained by my clients to look at that and to question 6 months here, 4 months there. And thus with resumes, I would always tell people if these were consulting assignments that were designed to be short term, aggregate the dates into one category, keep each assignment underneath it as distinct as you have it, but preceding it, it might be consultant, the aggregated dates on top, and then underneath it having those assignments. And now with COVID, of course, it becomes much the same thing. Laid off due to COVID, I think everyone gets a pass for that.
Yes, but I think it's important to include that information in the documentation. Whenever something is left unsaid or unaddressed, sadly, people make the negative assumption. They assume the worst. So get it out there, be honest about it. If you have a gap in your resume, speak to it, address it, explain what it is. And then at least it's a point of discussion for the interview. And it gives somebody some sense that you're not trying to sweep it under the rug and ignore it.
Yeah, it always reminds me of the person who on their resume left due to personal reasons. I knew I was going to go right at that because I wanted to know what the personal reason was without going into so much. Give me a sense of what the topic was here. passing of a parent, parents about to die, going through a bad divorce. Everyone gets that. But left due to personal reason, I was bored. That's a different level of response.
Right. So I think that the more you can offer, the better the interviewer can consider your resume. And I just went through, for a position we're interviewing for, 20 resumes. By the time you're going through 20 resumes, you really need somebody to jump out for a particular reason. And it was interesting to me when I narrowed it down that the reason those resumes stuck out is they had great experience that matched what we're looking for and also showed progressive advancement in their career. Those are some of the things that really matter when you're screening resumes. And as much as you try and be very attentive to every single detail in that resume, I think your point earlier, Jeff, is a really important one. By the time you get to resume number 20, you're almost fatigued and exhausted. So you're looking at those opening paragraphs, the current role, what's outstanding in that resume. And that's in the first half, if not the first page of the resume. If you're interested in more, if they've caught your attention there, then you move through and look at the rest of their experience. But having something that grabs the attention right out of the box is excellent. It's very, very valuable, not only for the online systems where they're matching keywords and it's a computer, but for the individual who's now received the top 20 resumes and is looking through the actual documents. Have something there that catches my eye, catches my attention, so that it compels me to read more.
I'm curious about something, because you spoke about 20 resumes. I'm sure you got 200 responses. Easily. So the system is narrowing it down to 20. Am I correct? So
correct.
Yeah. So you're getting the top 20 is identified by the applicant tracking system. They're forwarded to you. And now, folks, you probably have heard recruiters take 6 seconds to look at a resume. Anne may take 9. I used to take 3 to 4. She actually may read them. I would skim them. And all I was looking for were key elements that vaguely related to the role for me to decide whether to go further and actually read it. Sounds like you did much the same thing. So this is how much time you have to work with. And notice how earlier I said, make it easy for the hiring manager, make it easy for the executive recruiter or the junior recruiter to spot it fast, because otherwise, delete.
Right.
That's the truth of it. And I wish it were different, but no one has time these days to read everything. Interesting. So how did you narrow down the 20? I'm going to use this as a wonderful teaching part for folks. So you got the 20 resumes there. The system narrowed down from the more than 200 you probably got. How did you personally reduce the numbers to a manageable 8?
Sure, it's a great question. So the first thing that I used to narrow it down was experience matching to the role that we're seeking. And some people, their experience just didn't gel with it. They were successful in what they were doing, but they were missing some of the key experience that we know we need in this role. So that was the first, and that's almost an easier one. The next thing that I really paid a lot of attention to was their longevity in their different roles. And so the ability to pull out those short stint people is, unfortunately, it is something that's easy to pull somebody out of the mix. Then as I narrowed it down, I was really starting to look for the match in either the industry or experience that was clearly related to what we were searching for in the role. And when somebody has already done the role or something similar, that really pushed them up to the top of the list. So somebody that was showing that progressive growth, they were matching with the experience that they have, even if it was in a different industry, and the people that were at the top were matching industry, matching experience. And those are the people that, as we're going into the interviews, I'll probably be more favorably predisposed to them as well, because in my perception, they are more likely to be the right candidate. Now, I have to always step back and make sure I am not allowing my perceptions to get in the way of missing a great candidate. And that's important for interviewers, that you step back and really pay attention to who is showing up for the interview, not who you saw on the paper. Because the person you're hiring is the real person in the flesh, not the wonderful resume that they managed to pull together.
Great lesson for folks. Thank you. Now, I want to come to phone interviews because we did video and we've talked a little bit about in-person. How should someone prepare for a phone conversation, a phone interview? Hi, this is Ann Baum from. So how should they be prepared at that time when the phone rings?
Well, again, you want to do all of your regular preparation for an interview. Just because it's a phone interview doesn't mean it's any more casual or less important. And many companies are using the phone interview as a screening tool. It may be the one you need to be most prepared for as far as your answers. A few things to really think about. Make sure that I'm assuming this is a scheduled time, find a quiet place. Make sure that the noise in the background is minimized. Try to start your sentence with a word of the sentence, not so, huh. That is annoying in person, even more amplified when you're on the telephone and don't have anything but that person's voice to work with. If you think about people that you speak to on the phone that you've never met, you are automatically creating a picture of them in your mind. Think about how your voice, the tempo, the words that you're using, the way you're answering, how do those reflect who you really are and the best version of you? And that's something I would also practice with other people. Practice your phone voice. Make sure it's the very best that you can deliver.
And folks, one thing I'll always mention to people as they're growing in organizations, there's a great organization to practice with, practice your public speaking, called Toastmasters. If you do a search of Toastmasters, no, I'm not being paid a commission by them. I'm a former member twice, and I've interviewed people from Toastmasters for the show. I'll just simply say that it gives you a chance to practice extemporaneous speaking and formal speaking, which will serve you professionally, both in interviews and in the workplace as well. So consider a membership in Toastmasters. It's very inexpensive and a great supportive environment where you get feedback that will help you improve all your communication style. And one thing I'll mention is most clubs on a weekly basis will have what's called an counter, who will count the number of times you will say in the course of this, and you will be surprised by how frequently you may be saying it. So this is terrific. I just have a couple of more things I'd love to cover with you.
Certainly.
Thank you. Hope you're enjoying this.
Absolutely.
So advice for job hunters, advice for people in their career. What suggestions, because you're a veteran individual, you've seen a lot of people grow, you've seen a lot of people crash and burn. And judging by that reaction, maybe more people crash and burn than grow. What sort of advice do you have for people about how to grow in their career and avoid some of the mistakes that people are prone to make?
One of the things I think is incredibly helpful is to find mentors. And that can be somebody within your workplace, it can be somebody in your community. And a mentor is somebody that really helps you uncover the best parts of you and pushes you to develop. This is a mutual relationship, and I think mentors are incredibly valuable to help you grow in your career. And most people, when you reach out to them and ask for their advice, they're very willing to offer it. Now, one thing I would say, if you are constantly reaching out to people for their advice and then not following up on the advice, eventually they will stop giving the advice. So that's where, when you said the crash and burn, it made me think of people who are constantly asking for advice but never heeding the advice. So, that's, I think, an incredibly important thing. You can also reach out for professional coaching. I think it's a great investment, especially as you are looking to take that next step in your career. Oftentimes there are skill sets that you need to develop, and you need that professional training, professional coaching to get there. And the third piece I would offer is building relationships within your company with people that can become a sponsor of yours. And I heard a great saying, and I really like it. The mentor talks with you, a coach talks to you, and a sponsor talks about you. And I really love the combination of all three of those, where you're learning from your coach, your mentor becomes your confidant, that advisor, that trusted advisor, and a sponsor is somebody who, when a job is opening up in your company, they're thinking of you, and you're coming to mind when they see a great next step within the company. Those are three things that I think can really make a huge difference in your career.
I agree wholeheartedly, particularly that coaching thing. But
of course,
advice for recent grads or soon-to-be recent grads about landing that next job and avoiding some of the pitfalls of interviews. Just want to make sure we speak to them too.
I think the biggest thing for recent grads is don't give up. I know many recent grads that had their job lined up and that job has fallen through or been delayed. That doesn't mean you can't be out there looking for other opportunities, and I encourage you to do so. One thing about the current environment is people that otherwise wouldn't be accessible, senior executives, whether it's family, friends, neighbors, people that you've interned before, they're actually more available. They're not flying on planes. They're not traveling the world. They're not stuck in a boardroom for their meeting. They're generally home, and they're available for Zoom meetings, phone meetings. I encourage you to reach out to people that you know, and those people will refer you on to others. I know between my husband and I, we've had many of the friends of families contact us, and we're happy to listen to folks, give them advice, and connect them with other people we know. So don't give up just because your opportunity that you thought was going to be your lifetime career fell through. Get out there, keep talking to people, make those connections, build that network. It will pay off in the long run.
Follow up to that. For the person who's trying to reach outside of their immediate network to a stranger, are they calling the organization to try and find out how to reach that person, leaving voicemail? How does someone do that, whether during these times or in general, so they can expand their network and tap someone on the shoulder going, help, I could use some help, advice, anything? What do they do?
Sure. I think one of the best ways to do it is to get a warm introduction. So if you know somebody who knows somebody and they can make that connection and introduction, that's great. If you're making that cold outreach, One of the ways that I've found that I am more receptive to it is via LinkedIn. You can go onto LinkedIn, ask somebody to link in with you, and then send them a private message. And I personally am always willing to connect with somebody and hear what they have to say, especially if it's a younger person or somebody in a career transition looking for advice. I am open to that. Not everybody is, but the only way you'll know is if you ask. And by reaching out and asking, you at least have a chance. If you never do it, the answer is always no.
Agreed. And this has been terrific. I'm just going to hold this up. Small Mistakes, Big Consequences, the existing book, Small Mistakes, Big Consequences for Interviews, and Quarterly Bum, BAUM. How can people find out more about you, the work that you do, order the book, order an advanced copy of the new book? How can people do all of that?
So the books are available at barnesandnoble.com, at walmart.com, really wherever books are sold. And you can find out more about me at vision-accomplished, which is ACCOMPLISHEV.com.
Super. And folks, I'll have that link in the show notes. That's today's show. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, here are a few more ways to get information and advice from me. First of all, visit my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. Go to the blog. There's a lot there to help you with your job search, hiring more effectively, managing and leading in workplace-related issues. In addition, if you're interested in my coaching you, there's a button there that says schedule. Schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule yourself in for coaching. Obviously, I'm going to charge for that, but I can help you with interview preparation, leadership coaching, salary negotiation advice, making a good decision between different offers, anything related to improving yourself in the workplace, I can coach you about. If you have questions for me, you can schedule 15 minutes with me at thebiggamehunter.us/live, or a less expensive way is at thebiggamehunter.us/video answers, where you leave a message for me and I'll respond with a 3 to 5 minute video. Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/thebiggamehunter. I can assure you your network will expand a lot by connecting with me. And finally, watch me on TV. Download the JobSearch TV app for Fire TV, Fire Stick, Apple TV, Roku, like 90 different manufacturers. I'll be back tomorrow with more, and in the meantime, I hope you have a terrific day. Be great!
Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.
When you're ready to ride Metro, we want you to know we're ready for you. Here are just a few of the people at Metro to tell you how we're doing our part to keep riders safe.
We're cleaning like never before with hospital-grade cleaning.
You'll find hand sanitizer stations all over the metro.
No mask, no Metro. Need one? We have a few extras.
At Metro, we're doing our part to keep the DC area moving. Find out more at WMATA.com/doingourpart.